Hello and welcome to the second lesson in this topic. Over the next two lessons we will look at the processes that shape our natural landscapes all around the world. Please write the title, which will also be the same for next lesson as well. Today we will focus on weathering, which is the wearing away and breakdown of rocks. To start us off, we'll have a quick recap of some of the key words you learnt last lesson. Pause the PowerPoint here and have a go at the questions. Once you've done them, the answers are on the next slide. Check your answers here. Any that you got wrong, just make sure that you correct them.
So change of voice for this one. What is weathering? Well, weathering is the breakup of rocks into smaller pieces. So it's not the same as erosion. Erosion is when things are worn away and removed from where they are. Whereas weathering is simply the weakening of rocks so that they break up into small pieces, but they stay where they are. It's caused by a number of things. One, rocks warming up and cooling down. When they warm up, they expand, and when they cool down, they contract. And this happens repeatedly. Every night it gets cold, so they contract, and every day in the daytime, when it gets warm, they expand. And gradually they start to break up because of the sheer stress and pressure. It can also be from the action of water and ice. So water can get into cracks, it can freeze, and as it freezes, it expands again and puts pressure in the crack. A bit like when you make ice cubes and you put water in a tray, you pop it in the freezer, and when you take them out of the freezer, you might notice that they've grown in size. They seem to be a lot bigger. They're quite hard to get out of the hole, aren't they? So water and ice can lead to rock breaking up. You might have noticed even during the winter months, the roads often end up with lots of potholes on them. And that's because over the cold winter months of December, January and February, at night time when things like water has frozen on the streets and on the roads, it's put lots of pressure on the tarmac, and then that keeps happening every night, and then eventually it makes potholes on the roads. Just in case you didn't know, those potholes have not been made by people. They've not been made by people going out and damaging the roads. They've been made by the weather. And finally, weathering can happen because of plants and animals. So animals burrowing into the ground and breaking up rock. And plants growing in the ground. You've seen this where you see plants growing in the cracks between pavements, between the pavement slabs, and it can actually break the pavement slabs. You might notice this a lot around where you've got trees, where trees have been planted and the pavement has been built around them, and it kind of bulges round where the roots of the tree are, and then it can break up. Now, there's a clip for you to watch. It's on the slide here, but you can't click on it because this is a YouTube video. So you need to go onto Satchel 1 now, and you need to find that link and click on it to watch a really nice explanation. When you've done that, come back to this lesson.
The next few slides aim to give a little bit more information on different kinds of weathering. This one is on freeze-thaw. Now, freeze-thaw happens when an area experiences temperatures that fluctuate, go up and down below 0 degrees and above 0 degrees. When during a warmer period, water can fill in any little cracks or crevices within a rock. When this then freezes, the water will expand by about 10% and cause the rock to rip apart slightly. This might only be a slight amount, but over many thousands, maybe even millions of times of this happening, the rock will eventually break down into much smaller pieces. This slide looks at thermal expansion, sometimes known as onion skin weathering. This is most likely to happen in areas where they get extreme temperature changes during the day. So for example, in hot deserts, you get really hot during the daytime, but then they get really cold at nighttime as well. Now, as these heat up, different parts of the rocks will expand more than others, and so therefore will eventually begin to break apart as they contract and expand over many times. This will cause sometimes the outer layers of the rock to peel off almost like an onion. This slide looks at chemical weathering. Chemical weathering is really important for some rocks, but not so important for other rocks. It depends on how vulnerable it is to chemical weathering. Certain rocks such as limestone are easily weathered by rain and water, particularly if it's acidic. Now all rainwater is very slightly acidic, but sometimes with pollution they can become more acidic. For example, here the wing of this statue has been repaired due to chemical weathering and damage. Gravestones can also be weathered chemically. What's interesting about these is that you can often gauge the sort of rate of weathering by the age of the gravestone. This slide looks at biological weathering. Biological weathering is weathering caused by anything that lives. So, for example, earthworms and other animals might burrow into the rocks and slowly break them down. Here you've got a tree which has got roots working its way into the rocks and slowly pulling it apart. And here we have lichen on rocks. Now, lichen purposely break down the rocks to get some of their nutrients. This is the main task for today. You put the title, What is Weathering? And what I want you to do is for each of the 4 main types of weathering that we've looked at, I want you to make sure you draw a picture to show how it works and also an explanation. There are little sentence starters there to help you. The next slides are 4 scenarios. I want you to read each one and put in the margin 1 to 4 and decide which type of weathering would be the most important in each of them. The slide after gives you the answers. Here are your answers. Hopefully you got most of them right, if not all of them. Well done if you have. If you did get any wrong, just try and figure out why you got them wrong. So this is the final task for today. Once you've completed this task, please send it to your teacher via Show My Homework. What I'm wanting you to do is to decide how weathering has impacted on this landscape in this picture here. The picture shows the boxing gloves on Kinder Scout in the Peak District. The rock type is millstone grit. It's like squashed together bits of grit and sand, and so therefore does not corrode. It doesn't get chemical weathering to a large extent. Kinder Scout is the tallest point in the Peak District and gets cold weather and lots of precipitation, rain and snow. What I want you to do is explain 2 ways in which these rocks have been broken down or weathered over thousands to millions of years.